There was once an island, on every map, worth over $100 billion. Then one day, it vanished, without a trace, and no one, not even the government, wants to talk about it. No war, no disaster, just open ocean, where land once stood. And no one, not governments, satellites, or scientists, can explain it. Then in 1872, it disappeared. But not from memory, and not from the oil-soaked whispers of conspiracy. There's a part of the Gulf of Mexico that holds a secret, not the kind you find buried beneath the waves, but the kind that's missing altogether. For over 300 years, maps showed a small island just north of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. Sailors logged it, cartographers named it, governments acknowledged it. It was called Bermeja, a speck of land that should still be there today. But in 1872, it vanished. And not like other islands vanish, with hurricanes or tsunamis or tectonic shifts. No. Bermeja didn't sink. It didn't break apart. It simply ceased to exist. One year it was there, on maps, in maritime logs, in the minds of seafarers. The next, it was gone. No wreckage, no shoals, just 1,500 meters of deep, featureless water. Now here's the twist. It wasn't just an island that disappeared. It was a claim, a border, a national advantage. Because Bermeja wasn't just a rock in the ocean. It was the key to oil rights worth billions. And as oil companies zeroed in on the Gulf, the island's absence became a geopolitical ghost. Mexico wanted answers. The U.S. remained silent. And deep beneath the surface, rumors began to rise. Whispers of cover-ups, secret demolitions, and maps deliberately redrawn. What makes this more than just a forgotten rock is the pattern of precision. Because Bermeja was recorded repeatedly, consistently, and precisely over centuries. And yet now, at those exact same coordinates, there is nothing. No reef, no sandbar, no remnants of an island ever having existed. So the question isn't just where Bermeja went, it's who erased it and why. From as early as 1539, maps began to tell the same story, a tiny island in the Gulf of Mexico, always in the same spot. Spanish explorers called it Bermeja, named after the reddish hue of its soil. The name stuck, and so did its place on the world's charts. By the 1700s, it appeared in almost every major European maritime map. Not just rumors, documented repeatedly. British, Dutch, French cartographers, all agreed Bermeja existed. In 1799, renowned explorer Alexander von Humboldt referenced it in his work. In 1844, the Dirección de Hidrografía de España confirmed its coordinates with shocking precision. This wasn't folklore, it was geography. So how does a scientifically charted landmass, verified across centuries, vanish? Some argue it never existed, a mirage, a cartographic error copied over time. But that theory doesn't hold water, because Bermeja was described, measured, even considered in boundary treaties between nations. Maps from 1539 to 1921 drew it at almost the same coordinates, 21 degrees north, 91 degrees west. And then, silence. After the 1920s, maps began leaving it out. Not all at once, but slowly, like a story being erased, line by line, until it was forgotten, not disproven, just excluded. And that's where things get suspicious, because removing an island from history isn't easy, unless someone wants it gone, unless someone benefits from its absence. In 2000, the Mexican government launched a high-stakes investigation. Why? Because the missing island, Bermeja, was now the center of a territorial battle over the Hoyos de Dona oil fields, an underwater region believed to contain over 22 billion barrels of crude oil. If Bermeja existed, it would have extended Mexico's exclusive economic zone far into the Gulf of Mexico. giving them legal claim to the oil beneath. But without it, the zone shrinks. The oil shifts into U.S. territory. And just like that, hundreds of billions in potential revenue disappear with the island. Mexico sent naval ships to the coordinates. They used sonar scans, submersibles, drones, and they found nothing. No reef, no remains. Not even shallow water. The depth in the area reached nearly 1,500 meters, far too deep for an island to have naturally eroded. So the question wasn't just, where did it go? It was now, was it ever really there? Or worse, was it removed? Because some theories suggest something darker, a deliberate destruction, that Bermeja was blown up or submerged to eliminate Mexico's oil claim by entities that didn't want a territorial dispute, entities with a lot to gain. Rumors started to swirl that Bermeja's disappearance wasn't natural or accidental. A theory emerged, one whispered in oil boardrooms and late-night political briefings. What if the island was deliberately destroyed to redraw the map? A former Mexican senator, José Angel Conchelo, went public with shocking claims. He accused powerful oil interests and international players of conspiring to erase Bermeja physically and politically. He claimed satellite images had once shown an underwater structure where the island should have been, before those images were removed from public databases. But just months after speaking out, Senator Conchelo was killed in a mysterious car crash. No one was charged. No further investigation was conducted. The message was clear. Stop digging. That only fueled more suspicion. Why was a country's right to billions in oil decided by a missing island? No one could explain. Why were all official expeditions reporting nothing but deep sea, despite centuries of evidence? The deeper the mystery went, the higher the stakes became. Because now this wasn't just a missing island, it was a missing truth. But Bermeja isn't the only island to vanish. Throughout history, there have been dozens of documented islands that mysteriously appeared on maps, only to later disappear from the ocean and from memory. Cartographers call them phantom islands. One of the most famous, Sandy Island, marked on maps of the South Pacific for over a century. In 2012, Australian scientists sailed straight to its coordinates, only to find open ocean. No island, no reef, no underwater rise, nothing. It had never existed. Despite appearing in textbooks, atlases, and digital maps, then there's Thule Island, reported by explorers in the 18th century, only to vanish by the 1900s. Or High Brazil, a mythical landmass west of Ireland, appearing on maps from 1325 to the 1800s before vanishing completely. Some believe these were simple mapping errors, but others, they see a pattern. Why do so many islands go missing only after they become geopolitically important? How do satellite systems that can spot a car from orbit miss entire land masses? And in Bermeja's case, why would the Mexican government, backed by oil profits and national interest, fail so completely to prove its existence? Unless someone wanted it gone. The phenomenon of phantom islands leaves us with one haunting possibility. Bermeja wasn't a mistake. It was a target. In 2000, while Mexico was still searching for Bermeja, something else was happening behind closed doors. The Mexican and U.S. governments signed a highly confidential agreement called the Treaty of the Gulf of Mexico. This treaty redrew maritime boundaries between the two nations, right through the oil-rich waters where Bermeja used to be. Without Bermeja, Mexico's territorial claim shrunk dramatically. The U.S. gained a massive portion of the oilfield zone, thanks to one simple fact: the island was no longer there. What's shocking is that the treaty was finalized before Mexico concluded its Bermeja investigation. And once the treaty was signed, Mexico lost all legal ground to challenge the new borders. Critics claimed it was a setup, that the Mexican government had been pressured into the agreement, that powerful interests ensured Bermeja stayed lost, because its reappearance would have unraveled the entire deal. Even more strange, just after the treaty was signed, several pages of classified documents relating to Bermeja were sealed by both governments. Why seal information about a missing island? unless the truth was never meant to surface. Bermeja wasn't a myth. It wasn't folklore. It appeared on maps for over 400 years, documented by explorers, priests, sailors, and government surveyors. One of the earliest references dates back to 1539, drawn on a Spanish maritime chart used to navigate the Gulf. Later in 1775, the famed cartographer Thomas Lopez marked Bermeja's exact location, precisely where modern GPS coordinates placed it. And it didn't stop there. Bermeja shows up in multiple official atlases from Spain, Mexico, and even the United States throughout the 19th and 20th centuries. So if it was a cartographic error, it was one repeated by dozens of governments, explorers, and scientists for centuries. Are we supposed to believe they all got it wrong? Satellite data from the 1980s even showed slight oceanic elevation in the spot where Bermeja was supposed to be. A small rise, barely noticeable to ship, but just enough to match an eroded seamount. The implications: Bermeja existed. Maybe it sank. Maybe it was destroyed. But the ancient map makers weren't wrong. They knew something, and perhaps they weren't supposed to. What if Bermeja didn't just vanish? What if it was intentionally erased? This theory isn't new. In fact, it's one of the most chilling. Some experts believe the island was deliberately destroyed, removed by explosives or underwater demolition. Why? Because as long as Bermeja existed, Mexico had a legal claim to an oil-rich maritime zone worth billions. Its disappearance shifted power and wealth to another side of the border. Let's be clear, to destroy an island would require massive coordination. Satellites would have to be ignored, search missions controlled, public records quietly rewritten. And yet, not a single expedition found even rubble. No coral, no remains, no ruins. It was wiped clean. Some suggest an underwater operation using advanced technology, done decades ago and buried beneath bureaucracy. Others point to strange military activity in the region during the 1970s and 80s. Classified maneuvers near Bermeja's last known location. The deeper you dig, the more deliberate it feels, because nature doesn't erase history this perfectly. But people do. In 2003, a retired Mexican naval officer named Julian Garcia came forward with a stunning claim. He said he'd been part of a secret mission in the 1970s, a mission to survey and monitor a disputed island off the Gulf Coast. He didn't name it, but said it no longer exists, and that its disappearance was not natural. Shortly after his interview aired on local radio, he vanished. No goodbye, no trace. Even his family refused to speak to reporters. Days later, the radio station that aired his segment was broken into. Recordings were destroyed, transcripts erased. It's as if the interview had never happened. And Garcia wasn't the only one. Over the years, at least 3 separate researchers investigating Bermeja have reported being followed, harassed, or warned to drop the subject. One university professor even had his grant pulled mid-project, right after requesting U.S. naval archives from the 1980s. Coincidence? Or is there a powerful effort to silence the truth? Because if Bermeja's disappearance was man-made, then somewhere someone knows the full story, and they've made sure the world forgets it. Today, the sea is calm where Bermeja once stood. Fishermen pass by, unaware they're floating above one of the greatest mysteries in modern history. No memorial stands, no plaque exists, just open water, and questions that refuse to drown. Was Bermeja swallowed by the ocean, or by political convenience? Was it erased to reshape the power balance in the Gulf? Or did it never exist at all, a centuries-long phantom mistaken for fact? But how do you explain 400 years of maps, reports, testimonies, and warnings? How do you explain a treaty that changed millions of lives, signed in the ghostly absence of an island no one could find? And how do you explain the fear, the silence, the vanishing whistleblowers, the sealed documents? The truth is, Maybe Bermeja still exists. Maybe not physically, but in every missing record, every broken story, every oil rig standing where a forgotten piece of land once was. And maybe the real mystery isn't whether Bermeja vanished, but why so many wanted it to.